In the hyper-arid core of the Iranian plateau, surrounded by sun-baked dunes and jagged rock, lives the absolute final remnant of an evolutionary dynasty. The Asiatic cheetah is a distinct evolutionary significant unit. This unique genetic lineage split from its African counterparts up to 67,000 years ago to adapt to an entirely different continent. Historically, this apex predator dominated a continuous geographic range that stretched from the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula deep into the grasslands of the Indian subcontinent. That empire was dismantled by agricultural expansion and aristocratic trophy hunting. The collapse of the South Asian population was finalized in 1947 when the Maharaja of Surguja shot 3 male cheetahs in a single night. The cheetahs were starved out alongside their primary native prey. As the thorny scrublands of India were converted into farms, the blackbuck antelope, the specific species these predators relied on, was eradicated from the cheetah's hunting grounds. Human industrialization and agriculture compressed a predator built for continental plains into an isolated geographic bottleneck in Iran, locking the species onto a path toward genetic stagnation. Between 2011 and 2013, extensive camera trap networks across Iran provided a glimmer of biological optimism, identifying approximately 82 independent Asiatic cheetahs. This chart tracks the documented Asiatic cheetah population from 2011 to 2026. In just over a decade, the population entered a demographic freefall, leaving fewer than 40 total individuals alive globally today. Yet, early in 2026, researchers in the remote North Khorasan province recorded an extreme biological anomaly. A camera trap captured a single wild female successfully raising 5 healthy cubs in an unforgiving, resource-starved desert. In an environment with high infant mortality, successfully raising 5 cubs at once is a record for this subspecies. It proves that the surviving remnant population retains an intense biological drive to reproduce, despite immense environmental pressure. But biological drive cannot outrun mathematics. The species is suffocating under an extinction debt, a compounding vortex of physical, genetic, and geopolitical traps that guarantee its demise without immediate radical intervention. The remaining Iranian habitat is fractured into 2 distinct zones: the northern landscape stronghold and the massive southern landscape. The southern landscape historically encompassed 11 distinct protected areas, sprawling across 14,000 square kilometers of gravel desert. Over the last decade, severe, climate-driven droughts decimated the region's microhabitats and water sources. This forced a mass exodus of the native ungulate prey base, leaving the predators to starve. This animated spatial model demonstrates the Ali effect, a biological threshold where population density drops so low that individuals cannot locate a mate. We saw the real-world conclusion in 2023, when the final solitary male in the southern landscape wandered aimlessly for years before dying. Holding vast tracts of land is ecologically useless if the prey density and population connectivity are broken. Today, the entire southern region is officially classified as functionally extinct. The fate of the species now rests entirely on the northern landscape, specifically the Tehran Biosphere Reserve, which stands as the absolute final breeding stronghold globally. But this critical habitat is physically sliced in half by the Tehran-Mashhad Highway, a high-speed arterial road that acts as an ecological black hole. In the spring of 2023, a heavily pregnant female cheetah known as Majrad attempted to cross this road and was struck and killed by a speeding vehicle. By instantly erasing a pregnant mother and 3 unborn cubs, a single car crash destroyed over 10% of the species' future genetic potential in a matter of seconds. Inside the borders of the protected zones, an unregulated invasion of tens of thousands of livestock and aggressive feral pastoral dogs creates a second lethal barrier. To avoid the dogs and livestock, the cheetah's natural prey retreat into steep, rocky mountain terrain. This neutralizes the cheetah's evolutionary design. Their narrow shoulder blades and semi-retractable claws are anatomically engineered for high-speed sprinting on flat ground, not vertical climbing. Between the highway cutting off migration and agricultural creep pushing prey into the mountains, the viable hunting and breeding grounds have shrunk to near zero, physically suffocating the surviving population from the outside in. Even if we instantly removed every car and herd of livestock, a microscopic threat is already hardwired into the survivors: the severe decay of the species' genetic architecture. This graphic illustrates effective population size, isolating the 11 to 17 actively breeding individuals contributing DNA to the next generation. With a number this low, natural selection completely fails to purge lethal recessive mutations from the bloodline. The major histocompatibility complex, the genetic cluster responsible for immune system recognition, has become so homogenized that Asiatic cheetahs can actually accept skin grafts from one another without their bodies triggering systemic rejection. This severe inbreeding depression has fatal real-world consequences. Recently, the sibling of a captive-born cub named Piruz died mere days after birth from severe congenital lung malformations. The demographic outcome is mathematically devastating. Cub survival rates past their first year have plummeted from 89.5% a decade ago down to an unsustainable 47.3% today. The population is aging out. Protected or not, the species is mathematically programmed to die from within due to an irrevocably compromised genetic code. The most unique, human-made barrier obstructing modern ecological intervention in Iran is international geopolitical sanctions. Modern wildlife management relies on GPS satellite tracking collars to map hidden predator corridors and design precise highway underpasses based on exact movement data. Western economic sanctions strictly classify these high-tech GPS components as dual-use military technology, resulting in a total embargo on their import into Iran. Biologists are forced to rely on massive, labor-intensive arrays of infrared camera traps that only provide fragmented point-in-time location data rather than continuous tracking. The human-made obstacles extend further. Crucial United Nations core funding was withdrawn due to banking restrictions, and domestic political paranoia over foreign espionage led to the imprisonment of top Iranian wildlife researchers in 2018. The effort to preserve the cheetah has collided with international political warfare, making data collection a casualty of diplomatic gridlock. To counteract these overlapping crises, Iranian conservationists are actively removing barriers and engineering safe, new pathways for the species. The Iranian Cheetah Society has pivoted away from passive observation toward direct, hardline habitat engineering. They are using crowd-funded capital to execute an innovative buyout strategy, purchasing traditional grazing and water rights directly from local herdsmen to physically clear out livestock from the core ecological zones. Simultaneously, targeted physical infrastructure upgrades are underway. Authorities are installing permanent highway fencing and modifying existing drainage culverts into safe, dedicated wildlife underpasses. To bypass the Western GPS embargo, scientists are looking toward a domestic technological breakthrough: the planned Iranian Soleimani low Earth orbit satellite constellation. This indigenous Internet of Things network will finally allow Iranian biologists to deploy custom-built tracking collars, operating completely independent of Western telecom infrastructure constraints. Local conservationists have completely redefined their methodology. They are no longer passive monitors recording an extinction. They are aggressive engineers hacking the landscape and technology to buy time. But one controversial scientific question remains: what must be done if the Asiatic cheetah's genetic pool is already too degraded to save itself, even within a perfect habitat? The answer requires breaking geopolitical isolation. Iran is actively exploring diplomatic cooperation with South Africa and India to exchange advanced veterinary protocols and in vitro fertilization techniques. India demonstrated what massive political will can achieve through Project Cheetah, successfully relocating African cheetahs to Kuno National Park to fill their missing ecological niche. This opens the door to the highly debated theory of genetic rescue, the deliberate introduction of African cheetah genes into the Iranian population to cure their lethal inbreeding depression. This poses an agonizing ethical dilemma to biologists. They must choose between losing the absolute evolutionary purity of a 67,000-year-old Asiatic bloodline or allowing the entire subspecies to vanish completely. As an umbrella species, the cheetah's presence dictates the health of the entire Middle Eastern dryland ecosystem. The massive interventions required to save the cheetah, land buyouts, highway modifications, and strict anti-poaching laws create a protective shield that also saves other highly threatened wildlife, like the Persian leopard and the Asiatic black bear. The survival of the Asiatic cheetah is an engineering challenge, testing whether political and ethical barriers can be dismantled as effectively as highway fences.